Okay, finishing up Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. This is the last very section part of the book. Um, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to make this channel grow. I know the production value is not that good, but the talent is. So I hope you enjoy this. And don't forget to hit the subscribe and comment and tell me what you think. Okay, this starts with a Bible reference from Matthew chapter 6, and then it's the last few pages of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And why take ye through the raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Wherefore, if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? Therefore take no thought, saying, What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For your heavenly Father knoweth that you have need of all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew chapter 6, verse 28 through 33. What does all that mean? Orient yourself properly. Then, and only then, concentrate on the day. Set your sights at the good, the beautiful, and the true, and then focus pointedly and carefully on the concerns of each moment. Aim continually at heaven while you work diligently on earth. Attend fully to the future, in that manner while attending fully to the present. Then you have the best chance of perfecting both. I turned then from the use of time to my relationship with people, and wrote down and then read these questions and answers to my friend. What shall I do with my wife? Treat her as if she is the Holy Mother of God, so that she may give birth to the world-redeeming hero. What shall I do with my daughter? Stand behind her, listen to her, guard her, train her mind, and let her know it's okay if she wants to be a mother. What shall I do with my parents? Act such that your actions justify the suffering they endured. What shall I do with my son? Encourage him to be a true son of God. To honor your wife as a mother of God is to notice and support the sacred element of her role as mother, not just of your children, but as such. A society that forgets this cannot survive. Hitler's mother gave birth to Hitler, and Stalin's mother to Stalin. Was something amiss in their crucial relationships? It seems likely, given the importance of the maternal role in establishing trust. To take a single vital example, perhaps the importance of their motherly duties and of their relationship with their children was not properly stressed. Perhaps what the women were doing in their maternal guise was not properly regarded by husband, father, and society alike. Who instead might a woman produce if she was treated properly, honorably, and carefully? After all, the fate of the world rests on each new infant, tiny, fragile, and threatened, but, in time, capable of uttering the words and doing the deeds that maintain the internal, delicate battle between chaos and order. To stand behind my daughter, that's to encourage her in everything she wants to courageously to do, but to include in the genuine appreciation that the fact of her femininity, to recognize the importance of having a family and children, and to forego the temptation to degenerate or devalue that in comparison to accomplishment of personal ambition or career. It's not for nothing that the Holy Mother and Infant is a divine image, as we just discussed. Societies that cease to honor that image, that cease to see that relationship as transcendent and fundamentally important, also cease to be. To act to justify the suffering of your parents is to remember all the sacrifices that all the others who lived before you, not least your parents, have made for you in all the course of the terrible past, to be grateful for all the progress that have been thereby made, and then to act in accordance with the remembrance and gratitude. People sacrifice immensely to bring about what we have now. In many cases, they literally died for it, and we should act with some respect for that fact. To encourage my son to be a true son of God, that is to want him above all to do what is right and to strive to have his back while he is doing so. That is, I think, part of the sacrificial message, to value and support your son's commitment to the transcendent good above all things, including his worldly progress, so to speak, and his safety, and perhaps even his life. I continued asking questions. The answers came within seconds. What shall I do with the stranger? Invite him into my house and treat him like my brother, so that he becomes one. That's to extend the hand of trust to someone so that his or her best part can step forward and reciprocate. That's to manifest the sacred hospitality that makes life between those who do not yet know each other possible. What shall I do with the fallen soul? Offer a genuine and cautious hand, but do not join it in the mirror. That's a good summary of what we covered in Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. That's an injunction to refrain both from casting pearls before swine and from camouflaging your vice with virtue. What shall I do with the world? Conduct myself as if being is more valuable than non being. Act as so that you are not made bitter and corrupt by the tragedy of existence. That's the essence of Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Confront the uncertainty of the world voluntarily and with faith and courage. How shall I educate my people? Share with them those things I regard as truly important. That's Rule 8. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. That is to aim for wisdom, to distill that wisdom into words and to speak forth those words as if they matter, with true concern and care. That's all relevant as well in the next question and answer. What shall I do with the torn nation? Stitch it back together with careful words of truth. The importance of this injunction has, if anything, become clearer over the past few years. We are dividing and polarizing and drifting toward chaos. It is necessary, under such conditions, if we are to avoid catastrophe, for each of us to bring forward the truth as we see it, not the arguments that justify our ideologies, not the machinations that further our ambitions, but the spark, pure facts of our existence. Revel for others to see and contemplate, so that we can find common ground and proceed together. What shall I do for God my Father? Sacrifice everything I hold dear to yet greater perfection. Let the dead wood burn off so that new growth can prevail. That's the terrible lesson of Cain and Abel, detailed in the discussion of the meaning surrounding Rule 7. What shall I do with the lying man? Let him speak so he may reveal himself. Rule number 9. Listen is once again relevant here, as it is in another section of the New Testament. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire, for by the fruit ye shall know them. I always thought that was like parents and children relationship. Now I understand that verse. Well, I haven't always thought that. I just recently read the Bible, that verse. I have a series of videos on this channel where I'm reading the Bible, and that particular verse came up, and I thought about it. Okay. The rod, continuing on, that was Matthew chapter 7, verse 16 through 20. The rod must be revealed before something sound can be put in its place, as was also indicated in Rule 7's elaboration, and all of this is pertinent to understanding the following question and answer. How shall I deal with the enlightened one? Replace him with the true seeker of enlightenment? There is no enlightened one. There is only the one who is seeking further enlightenment. Proper being is process, not a state, a journey, not a destination. It's the continual transformation of what you know, though through encounter with what you don't know, rather than the desperate clinging to the certainty that is eternally insufficient in any case. That accounts for the importance of rule number 4. Compare yourself. Always place your becoming above your current being. That means it is necessary to recognize and accept your insufficiency, so that it can be continually rectified. That's painful, certainly, but it's a good deal. The next few Q&As made up another coherent group, focused this time on ingratitude. What shall I do when I despise what I have? Remember those who have nothing and strive to be grateful. Take stock of what is right in front of you. I'm happy. That wasn't a joke. I used to live in the woods with my 2 cats for 3 years before here. Consider rule number 12, somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Speaking of cats. Consider as well that you may be blocked in your progress, not because you lack opportunity, but because you have been too arrogant to make full sense of what already lies in front of you. That's rule number 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. I spoke recently with a young man about such things. He had barely ever left his family and never his home state, but he journeyed to Toronto to attend one of my lectures and to meet with me at my home. He had isolated himself far too severely in the short course of his life to date and was badly plagued by anxiety. When we first met, he could hardly speak. He had nonetheless determined in the last year to do something about all of that. He started by taking on the lowly job of dishwasher. He decided to do it well when he could have treated it contemptuously. Intelligent enough to be embittered by a world that did not recognize his gifts, he decided instead to accept with genuine humility that is the true precursor to wisdom whatever opportunity he could find. Now he lives on his own. That's better than living at home. Now he has some money, not much, but more than none, and he earned it. Now he's confronting the social world and benefiting from the ensuing conflict. Knowledge frequently results from knowing others, but the man who is awakened has seen the uncarved block. Others might be mastered by force, but to master oneself requires the Tao. He who has many material things may be described as rich, but he who knows he has enough and is at one with Tao might have enough of material things and have self being as well. As long as my still anxious but still transforming and determined visitor continues down his current path, he will become far more competent and accomplished, and it won't take long. But this will only be because he accepted his lowly state and was sufficiently grateful to take the first equally lowly step away from it. That's far preferable to waiting endlessly for the magical arrival of Godot. That's far preferable to arrogant, static, unchanging existence while the demons of rage, resentment, and unlived life gather around. What shall I do when greed consumes me? Remember that it's truly better to give than to receive. The world is a form of sharing and trading. That's rule number 7 again. Not a treasure host for the plundering. To give is to what you can to make things better. The good in people will respond to that and support it and imitate it and multiply it and return it and foster it so that everything improves and moves forward. What shall I do when I ruin my rivers? Seek for the living water and let it cleanse the earth. I found this question, as well as its answer, particularly unexpected. It seems most associated with Rule 6, set your house. Perhaps our environmental problem are not best construed technically. Maybe they're best construed psychologically. The more people sort themselves out, the more responsibility they will take for the world around them and the more problems they will solve. It is better, proverbially, to rule your own spirit than to rule a city. It's easier to subdue an enemy without than one within. Maybe the environmental problem is ultimately spiritual. If we put ourselves in order, perhaps we will do the same for the world. Of course, what else would a psychologist think? The next set were associated with the proper response to crisis and exhaustion. What shall I do when my enemy succeeds? Aim a little higher and be grateful for that lesson. Back to Matthew. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you, and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. Chapter 5, verse 43 through 45. What does this mean? Learn from the success of your enemies. Listen, rule number 9, to the critique so that they can glean from their opposition whatever fragments of wisdom you might incorporate to your betterment. Adopt as your ambition the creation of a world in which those who work against you see the light and wake up and succeed, so that the better at which you are aiming encompass them too. What shall I do when I'm tired and impatient? Gracefully accept an outstretched helping hand. That is something with a twofold meaning. It's an injunction, first, to note the reality of the limitations of individual being, and second, to accept and be thankful for the support of others, families, friends, acquaintances, and strangers alike. Exhaustion and impatience are inevitable. There is too much to be done and too little time to which to do it. But we don't have to strive alone, and there is nothing but good in distributing the responsibilities, cooperating in the efforts, and sharing credit for the productive and meaningful work thereby undertaken. What shall I do with the fact of aging? Replace the potential of my youth with the accomplishments of my maturity. This harkens back to the discussion of friendship surrounding Rule 3 in the story of Socrates' trial and death, which might be summarized as follows. A life lived thoroughly justifies its own limitations. The young man with nothing has his possibilities set against the accomplishment of his elders. It's not clear that it's necessarily a bad deal for either. An aged man is but a paltry thing, wrote William Butler Yeats. A tattered coat upon a sick, unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing for every tatter in its mortal dress. What shall I do with my infant's death? Hold my other loved one and heal their pain. It is necessary to be strong in the face of death, because death is intrinsic to life. It is for this reason that I tell my students, aim to be the person at your father's funeral that everyone, in their grief and misery, can rely on. That's a worthy and noble ambition. Strength in the face of adversity. That is very different from the wish for a life free of trouble. What shall I do in the next dire moment? Focus my attention on the next right move. The flood is coming. The flood is always coming. The apocalypse is always upon us. That's why the story of Noah is archetypical. Things fall apart. We stress that in the discussion in Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. And this century cannot hold. When everything has become chaotic and uncertain, all that remains to guide you might be the character you constructed previously by aiming up and concentrating on the moment at hand. If you have failed in that, you will fail in the moment of crisis, and then God help you. That last set contained what I thought were the most difficult of all questions I asked that night. The death of a child is, perhaps, the worst of catastrophes. Many relationships fail in the aftermath of such a tragedy, but dissolution in the face of such horror is not inevitable, although it is understandable. I have seen people immensely strengthen their remaining family bonds when someone close to them has died. I have seen them turn to those who remained and redouble their efforts to connect with them and support them. Because of that, all regained at least some of what has been so terribly torn away by death. We must therefore commiserate in our grief. We must come together in the face of tragedy of existence. Our families can be the living room with the fireplace that is cozy and welcoming and warm while the storms of winter rage outside. The heightened knowledge of our fragility and mortality produced by death can terrify, embitter, and separate. It can also weaken. It can remind those who grieve not to take the people who love them for granted. Once I did some chilling calculations regarding my parents who are in their 80s. It was an example of the hated arithmetic we encounter in the discussion of rule number 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. And I walked through the equations so that I would stay properly conscious. I see my mom and dad about twice a year. We generally spend several weeks together. We talk on the phone in the interim between visits, but the life expectancy of people in their 80s is under 10 years. That means I am likely to see my parents if I am fortunate, fewer than 20 more times. That's a terrible thing to know, but knowing it puts a stop to my taking those opportunities for granted. The next set of questions and answers had to do with the development of character. What shall I say to a faithless brother? The king of the damned is a poor judge of being. It is my firm belief that the first way to fix the world, a handyman's dream, if ever there was one, is to fix yourself, as we discussed in rule number 6. Anything else is presumptuous. Anything else risks harm, stemming from your ignorance and lack of skill. But that's okay. There's plenty to do right where you are. After all, your specific personal faults detrimentally affect the world. Your conscience, voluntary sense, because no other word really works, makes things worse than they have to be. Your inaction, inertia, and cynicism removes from the world that part of you that could learn to quell suffering and make peace. That's not good. There are endless reasons to despair of the world and to become angry and resentful and to seek revenge. Failure to make the proper sacrifices, failure to reveal yourself, failure to live and tell the truth, all that weakens you. In that weakened state, you will be unable to thrive in the world, and you will be of no benefit to yourself or to others. You will fail and suffer, stupidly. This will corrupt your soul. How could it be otherwise? Life is hard enough when it is going well, but when it's going badly, and I have learned through painful experience that nothing is going so badly that it can't be made worse. This is why hell is a bottomless pit. This is why hell is associated with the aforementioned sin. In the most awful of cases, the terrible suffering of unfortunate souls becomes attributable by their own judgment to mistakes they made knowingly in the past, acts of betrayal, deception, cruelty, carelessness, cowardice, and, most commonly of all, willful blindness. To suffer terribly and to know yourself as the cause, that is hell. And once in hell, it is very easy to curse being itself. And no wonder, but it's not justifiable. And that's why the king of the damned is a poor judge of being. The king of the damned is a poor judge of being. How do you build yourself into someone on whom you can rely, in the best of times and the worst, in peace and in war? How do you build for yourself the kind of character that will not ally itself in its suffering and misery with all who dwell in hell? The questions and answers continue, all pertinent in one way or another to the rules I have outlined in this book. What shall I do to strengthen my spirit? Do not tell lies, or do not do what you despise. What shall I do to embody my body? Use it only in the service of my soul. What shall I do with the most difficult of questions? Consider them the gateway to the path of life. What shall I do with the poor man's plight? Strive through the right example to lift his broken heart. What shall I do when the great crowd beckons? Stand tall and under my broken truths. And that was that. I still have my pen of light. I haven't written anything with it since. Maybe I will again when the mood strikes and something wells up from deep below. But even if I don't, it helped me find the words to properly close this book. I hope that my writing has proved useful to you. I hope it revealed things you knew that you did not know you knew. I hope the ancient wisdom I discussed provides you with strength. I hope it brightened the spark within you. I hope you can straighten up, sort out your family, and bring peace and prosperity to your community. I hope, in accordance with Rule 11, do not bother your children when they are skateboarding, that you strengthen and encourage those who are committed to your care instead of protecting them to the point of weakness. I wish you all the best and hope that you can wish the best for others. What will you write with your pen of light? What will you write with your pen of light? That was Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And my name is Gregory Brandt. Got to end this real quick because I was inspired by that last part, and there's something I want to add to a writing project that I'm working on. I too am a writer. I wrote my first book, Gonzo Education. There's a playlist of me reading that book on this channel. I encourage you to check that out or any of my other playlists of books that I've read. If you have any suggestions of books that you think I should read, go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'm trying to help this channel grow. Appreciate you watching this. Have a nice day.